Good evening, and thank you for watching STARS Algebra 1 EOC Practice Test, questions 66 through 84. I'd like to give a special shout out to Miami-Dade Schools for writing this practice test and for publishing it on the internet. Also, I'd like to thank all of our Livingston Parish students who are still working very hard on their EOC tests and who are sticking with it. I appreciate your patience, and you're working so hard here at the end of school. Always remember, at this time of the year, that's not the light at the end of the tunnel we're seeing. That is the end of the tunnel. So anyway, we're almost there, so let's get started and let's do the homework tonight. Okay, question number 66. Okay, we want to know what line is parallel. All right, to this line here. First thing we need to do is to find our rate of change. So we have a rise, two, a run, a 4. So we know that rise over run, we're looking for a line with a slope of positive 1/2. Now notice these are all in standard form, so we're going to have to put these into slope-intercept form before we find the answer. All right, the first one, we saw this for y. We subtract 2x from both sides. You have negative y equal negative 2x plus 3. Divide by negative 1. And we have y equal positive 2x minus 3. Well, that slope is not positive 2, and the y-intercept is not negative 3, so it can't be A. Let's try the next one. Let's try B. Subtract our x. We have negative 2y is equal to negative 1x plus 3. Divide both sides by negative 2. We have y equal to positive 1/2 x minus 3/2, which is the same thing as negative 1/2. This one does have a slope of positive 1/2, but the y-intercept is negative 1/2. So that is not going to be our answer. Okay, let's try C. Subtract our 8x. We get negative 4y equal negative 8x plus 4. Divide by 4, and we get y equal to negative 2x plus 1. Okay, the slope isn't that. Okay, so that can't be it. I bet it's going to be D. I'm going to have to erase a little stuff to make room to work. 9x plus 18y equal to negative 9. Alright, and on this one, okay, you know what, I just realized I misread the question. All they want is a line parallel to it. That is it right there, positive 1/2 x. I don't even need to go any further. If you did subtract 9x from this one, you'd have 18y equal negative 9x minus 9. Divide by 18, and you would have negative 9 over 18, which is negative 1/2. And so anyway, all we needed to do was right here, and that is the answer. So B is our answer there. Okay. For our next one, okay, we've got 3 children and 2 adults, and they're paying $120. 5 children plus 1 adult, they're paying $95. Okay, so we've got 2 equations, 2 variables. We know this is a system. What we need to do is we need to temporarily eliminate one of the variables, okay, so that we can solve for the other. I notice this is going to be pretty easy here because you've got a positive 2a. If we can make that be a negative 2a, then we can cancel the a's and find out about the children first. You could also have multiplied this equation by positive 5, that one by negative 3, that would have given you 15, negative 15, that would eliminate the children. Then you could find the adults first. It's strictly your choice, but I'm going to go the easiest route. So I'm going to multiply this whole equation by negative 2. So the top equation I'm leaving the same. And then the bottom equation, negative 10c minus 2a is equal to negative 190. Now we can add, that'll give us negative 7c is equal to negative 70 divided by negative 7. So they are charging $10 for a child. They also want to know and one adult, so I'm going to have to find the number of adults. And if you recall, when we solve a system, we go back and we take one of the two original equations. Usually we go with the one with the smallest number, so I'm going to go with that one. You plug in what you found already, and we just found out that children are paying $10 each. Okay, so that'd be 50 plus A equals to 95. Okay, subtract 50. A is equal to 45. Okay, so adults are paying 45 each. They want the total cost for one child and one adult. So 10 plus 45 equals 55. Okay, this computer is purchased and it depreciates $140 per year. Automatically you see per, you know we're talking rate of change here. Okay, which linear expression represents the value? Well, let's see, it's starting out at $1,200, which was the y-intercept. It is decreasing $140 per year. So A would be the answer. They want us to simplify this. We have two numbers that are both being divided by 14 CD. I find it easy to separate them before I get started. They're both being divided by 14 CD. This is like distributing. We have to distribute this 14 CD to each of these. Now we can simplify. 14s cancel here. We are dividing like bases, so we know to subtract the exponents. Here, this fraction can be reduced. 21 and 14 have 7 in common. 7 goes into 21 3 times. It goes into 14 2 times. Same thing. We are dividing like bases, so we can subtract the exponents. Is C, dividing like bases, subtract the exponents, that would be D squared. Okay, and so that is our answer, and that is D. Okay, which is the greatest element in the domain? Remember when we were talking about functions and relations, okay, the independent variable is the domain, the dependent variable is the range. And the greatest element in the domain is 10. Okay, which equation is equivalent to this? It looks like they want us to start solving it. So we have 5x. We're going to distribute this negative 2. That'll give us negative 14x minus 2 equal to positive 14x. We can also now over here simplify. 5x minus 14x is negative 9x minus 2 equal to 14x. And if you look here, that's as far as they want us to go, so we can stop. Okay, this one they want us to solve it all the way, so let's go ahead and distribute. 24x plus 30 equal to 3x plus 24 plus that 3. This side is simplified, but we need to simplify this side over here a little more. We can't combine anything with 3x, but we can add 24 plus 3 and get 27. We know when we solve equations, we want to get all of our variables on one side, the numbers on the other. So I'm going to move my variables on this left-hand side here. So I'm going to subtract 3x from both sides. And that gives me 21x. Bring down the plus 30 equal to those canceled. Bring down the 27. Now that we have the variables on the left side, let's move this 30 to the right side by subtracting. We'll bring down that 21x. The 30's canceled. 27 minus 30 is negative 3. Divide by 21 each side. 3 goes into itself once, into 21 7 times. So negative 1/7 is the answer. That answer is B. Okay, we have to solve this inequality. We need to add 5 to both sides. And that gives us x greater than 19. We didn't multiply divide by negative numbers, so we don't have to change the sign around. That's all we had to do. Which inequality is shown in this graph below? First of all, I noticed that they have a solid line, which means that the symbol has to have a little equal to under it. There is no way it can be A or C because they are missing that little equal. It's not there. Since they're missing it, can't be them. Also, I noticed that they shaded up. We know that when we have it in this form with y on this side, okay, if it's less than or equal to, you would shade down. So it can't be this one. If it's greater than or equal to, you shade up. And of course, that means a solid line, so D was the answer. Okay, this one, we are looking for a graph with a slope of positive 2 and a y-intercept of negative 2. First of all, just looking at them, I know it cannot be C or B because those slopes are not positive. Those slopes are negative. I'm looking for something with a y-intercept of negative 2, and look right there. You've got a slope of positive 2 up to over 1 and a y-intercept of negative 2. So A is our answer. They want the slope of this line. When I find the slope of a line, what I always do is I make sure I am on a corner where that line is exactly crossing. I would not start right there because you see you're not on an exact corner. I would not start right there because that's not on the corner. I'm going to start right here and I'm going to go to there because those two were exactly on corners. And I'm just going to go up 2, which is our rise. Our run is to the right 3, so it's a positive 3. Okay, so the slope of that line is positive 2/3. They want us to factor this expression, and if you notice we have a difference of 2 perfect squares. That would be y squared plus 9, y squared minus, y squared plus 6, because 6 times 6 is 36. Y squared plus 6, y squared minus 6. All right, some folks might think they can go further right here, but that's not, it is a difference, but that's not a difference of 2 perfect squares. That's as far as we can go, so the answer is C. Simplest form. Think of this as being like 4x plus 3x minus 5x. Remember when we did those? That was our distributive property. 4x's plus 3x's give us 7x's. Take away 5x's, and we had 2x for the answer. You can do the same thing here. 4 square root of 2's plus 3 square root of 2's is 7 square root 2's. Take away 5 square root 2's. 7 minus 5 is 2. You end up with 2 square root 2's. Remember when we solve quadratic equations, we first of all have to make them equal to 0. So I'm going to subtract 28 from both sides to make that equal to 0. That gives you x squared minus 7x minus 18 equal to 0. We have to think what multiplies to give us negative 18 adds to give us negative 7. That would be negative 9 and positive 2 equal to 0. And remember, the zero product factor property says that either x minus 9 equals 0 or x plus 2 equals to 0. If we add 9 to both sides, we get x equal to 9. You could actually visually inspect that and realize that if x was positive 9, that would be 0. Here you subtract 2 from both sides, and you get x equal negative 2. So our answers are 9 and negative 2. Once again, you can visually inspect that and see if x was negative 2 here, that would also make it equal to 0. Okay, another quadratic. Subtract 16 from both sides. Since our leading coefficient is 1, we can say what multiplies to give negative 16 adds to give positive 6. That would be positive 8, negative 2. By using the zero product factor property, we can see that negative 8 is going to be the solution here. 2 will be the solution there. So we're looking for negative 8 and 2, okay, and that is C. This one I don't think will factor. The leading coefficient is not 1. 8 times 1 is 8. The only factors that I could think would work would be 8 and 1 and 4 and 2. If you try testing those with a FOIL method, you'll see they don't work. So if you have a quadratic equation that will not factor, okay, then you're going to need to use the quadratic formula. And here at Holden, we have a song for that. Okay, Holden folks, sing with me. X equals negative b plus r minus square root b squared minus 4ac divided by 2a. Take that, Taylor Swift. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to plug in our stuff. Okay, so a is going to be equal to 8. B is 2, C is 1. I know that because when I have a quadratic equation of the form ax squared plus bx plus c equals to 0, a is always the coefficient in front of the x squared, b is always the coefficient of x, c is the constant, the number that does not have an x with it. So we're going to plug in our stuff now. So we're going to plug in everywhere we see an A, an 8. Everywhere we see a B, we're going to plug in 2. All right. And when we do this now, this is going to give us negative 2 plus and minus the square root of 4 minus 32 over 16, which is negative 2 plus and minus the square root of negative 28 over 16. We know that in the real numbers, we cannot take the square root of a negative number. So since we can't do that, we automatically know that D has to be the answer. Cannot take the square root of a negative number. All right, let's look at this one. Both of these are being divided by 6y. Let's separate and divide each of them by 6y. We're going to do stuff once and a 6 twice. So that gives you x over 2y plus, here the y's cancel. 2a would be the answer. Okay, we're solving this equation. Some folks want to do 6 minus 3 first, but remember there is a multiply there, and order of operations says we multiply before we add and subtract. So that's going to give you negative 12x plus 15 equal to 7. 6 plus 15 is 21. We subtract 21. Negative 12x equal to negative 14 divided by negative 12. We have a negative divided by negative. That's going to be a positive. 2 will go into 14 7 times. 2 will go into 12 6 times. So we're going to get positive 7/6, or B. All right, and in this one, okay, they want us to solve for W. First of all, I notice here, if I put a 1 under the B, you have a proportion. And proportions are always nice to work with because we can cross multiply. We can multiply that and get B times H squared is equal to, and cross multiply here, 1 times 703W is 703W. We're solving for W. The last step is to just divide by 703. So W will be equal to BH squared over 703, which is answer C. Okay, all right, that concludes our program. We thank you so much for watching. Keep up the good work. Keep working hard. About a week from now, your life is going to start looking a whole lot different than it does now. So be patient with your EOCs and all of your final exams and keep working hard. It's almost over.